one thing that stands out to me about the Battle of Hoth is obviously the AT-AT stuff is so cool.
Real quick, AT-AT or AT-ATs?
I say AT-AT.
I always say AT-AT.
So do I. Good. Hey everybody, and welcome to the CineFix Top 100, the desolate, frozen planet on which we're hiding from the Empire and watching 100 of the greatest movies ever made. I'm Clint Gage. Joining me, as always, CineFix's resident scruffy-looking nerf herder. It's Michael Calabro. Cal, what's going on, man?
Hey, Clint. How's it going, dude?
It's going. It's going okay. And he's got a lot of guts showing up after what he pulled. Nick Lamone.
Hey, everyone. And I thought they smelled bad on the inside.
Yeah, you might have just stolen one of my jokes from the outro.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
I'm just ruining every episode.
No. I love. We're feeling it out here, getting to know each other, and like I'm just gonna make sure to write multiple jokes for my outros because I like that you throw one out right up top. But how are we doing, guys? You ready for some more family time today?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Good. I'm glad. That's what we're getting.
Hanging out in the ship, hiding out from the Empire while our ship don't work.
Yeah.
Sounds like
while Clint's chilling with puppets in a weird swamp.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys continue to wrench on your hot rod, and then I'll hang out with weird puppets in a swamp. All right. Well, I mean, let's get to it then. We're headed back out to a galaxy far, far away, and we're talking about The Empire Strikes Back this week, which is, obviously Star Wars. It's a Star War. But 1980, directed by Irvin Kershner, it's the continuing of adventures of the rebellion's fight against the evil galactic empire. It's a part 2, became a part 5 at some point. It's Star Wars, guys.
So few franchises have what is arguably their best movie as the 5th one.
Right.
You know.
Which I wonder if that was part of the deal with Reno. If it was just like, you know what, nobody's 5th movie is ever the best. So like, I'm going to go ahead and call this one the 5th movie.
What one was the Friday the 13th, the one with Corey Feldman?
Oh, I don't know.
Is that the 5th one? That might be the 4th. It's around there. It's before Jason Goes to Hell.
Well, I do know it's the Empire Strikes Back of the Friday the 13th franchise.
That's what they were saying. Like before every take,
right?
The director was just like, "This is the Empire Strikes Back."
This
Friday
is my
the
Star War.
Ever since they made the 4th one, they're like, next time I get to say this.
Kane Hodder wouldn't have made a bad Vader though.
Yeah. I honestly don't understand that reference.
Really?
Yeah. That's it. Listen, the Friday the 13th, the deeper into those franchises that you get, the more of a blind spot it is for me. I never kept up with that, or Nightmare on Elm Street, or Dream Warriors, or
I like Dream Warriors.
Kane Hodder was the guy that like played Jason for most of them.
Okay,
so he's
gotcha.
like the man in the suit.
Just the bulk.
Yeah. And since
Or
like David Krause just kept on getting dubbed over anyway.
Yeah. Well, supposedly he almost got, I don't know if I'm blowing a torf already before we even started talking about this movie, but supposedly he almost didn't play Vader in this one because he was like asking for money and they strong-armed him. They were like, we'll get somebody else.
You're a guy in a suit.
Supposedly, which is the thing that I wholeheartedly believe. I think Anthony Daniels had a better time of getting getting a raise, but Krause was just like, I don't know.
At least Anthony Daniels is like, using his own voice. Because do you think if Peter Mayhew got, ASCII?
Weirdly enough, Peter Mayhew was just like, no, I'm good. I'll be back.
Yeah. He knew it was up.
Let me know when to show up.
Yeah.
But listen, I mean, this is another one of those things. I think we had a similar conversation when we did the Star Wars episode way back. It's just like, what is there to say about the Star Wars franchise at this point?
Is this the movie you want to be contrarian about, Nick?
No, not this one. I don't think I have any particular controversial takes on this Star Wars.
Okay.
Save the takes.
Or maybe I do. Who knows?
No matter how controversial they are, but
I totally get what you're saying though. It's like we're just 3 dudes sitting in an office in 2025. There's been books and books, interviews and documentaries done about these movies in particular, this movie in particular, and just it's a weird out of place in the context of pop culture. It just always has been.
I can imagine there's somebody out there that is a doctor of Star Wars.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Postgraduate work has been done around this movie.
I'm gonna say there isn't gonna probably be no podcast exist that where we speak of probably about an hour of the importance and miracle that is optical printers.
Listen, let's get to that because we can get through some of the nuts and bolts of the pedigree of this movie. By all accounts, this was kind of it was a tough production. Mm-hmm. There was a lot. I mean, everything from the biggest blizzard of all time in Norway to fires on the set of The Shining, that then they had to move some of the stages, some of the sets that were on the stages in London that they were working on, and there were delays, and the interesting thing in reading some of the behind the scenes stuff, it felt like the producer was mad at the director was mad at Lucas was mad at all, like everybody was mad at the person to their left and blaming the person to their right for it. Like it just seemed like nobody was particularly happy. But the fascinating thing about this is, like, Star Wars comes out in 1977 and it changes everything. Mm-hmm. Like, biggest movie of all time. Oh, by the way, movies are a whole new thing now because of Star Wars. 2 weeks later, it's like, well, yeah, we're going to make another Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And so they started developing it more or less right away. And there's something funny about this movie and how difficult the production was, how determined they were to make everything bigger, and then how the budget started. Something I who knows with budgets, but I read something like it started at about 12 million and ended up closer to 30. There was never any like, well, maybe we shouldn't do this. Mm-hmm. This movie is a testament to, we made so much money, we're for sure going to make. There's like a momentum that is unstoppable with this kind of thing, and this felt like a. Maybe it's the start of that. Maybe Jaws was the start of that. I don't know when they made Jaws 2. It wasn't too long after Jaws, but like there's that feeling of just like, oh no, we're making another one.
I mean, there's an Exorcist 3.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the way that the movie got put together with, Lucas put up a bunch of his money. He got some money from Fox for the distribution pre-sale. He got some, and then he just took a loan from the bank. He was just a dude with a loan making this movie.
I mean, let's be real. Like, if I was a bank, I'd be bending over backwards because like. He owns the merchandising rights. Mm-hmm. How much Star Wars merchandise did he move from 1977? Where like, was it that Christmas of 1977 where they had the empty box, like the empty box Christmas? I think it was, right?
I've never heard that reference. What is that?
So they
couldn't. It's the second reference. I don't know.
They couldn't get action figures printed in time for Christmas, but for the Christmas holiday, so they literally basically just sold an empty box of an IOU.
Wow.
They sold IOUs for Christmas. That's great.
Like
how many kids stopped believing in Santa Claus that year?
Well, that's because you were bad. That's they were bad. Exactly, well, maybe next time.
Like at Christmas in 1977, they didn't have the toys all set up, but they were like, we got to sell these things. Yeah. So they literally just sold empty boxes.
I've never heard that. That's incredible.
That was like an IOU. That was like the start.
No, he was good for it.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. Yeah. That was the start of the merch.
Right.
One of the interesting things about Empire Strikes Back that I do think we need to talk about is how much worse it did in the box office than the original Star Wars.
Yeah, like by now, it's something I adjusted for inflation to date. It's something like the 13th highest grossing movie of all time. Like, it did well.
Sure, but like, so
what would you attribute that to, though?
So here's what I'm doing. I'm pulling up Box Office Mojo, and I'm counting initial run, not re-releases, anything like that. Just like the initial run, right? Star Wars did $307 million, and then I'm sure.
And that's the initial run of Star Wars that lasted like a year and change.
Yeah. Right, and then the original release of Empire Strikes Back did 209, so it did like $100 million less. And what's wild about this is like this is it had 4 years to like continue to develop the audience. By the late 70s, VCRs were a thing, right? Like, you could own Star Wars on VHS.
I'd have to look at that. I'm not real sure. I've always, in my brain, it's always been early 80s. But like, I mean, that is the other thing about Empire Strikes Back is like it was, reviews were very mixed. Like, people, like, the first Star Wars was so cheery and so light and so fun that this is like all of a sudden, I read a review where somebody described it as absurd that they would try to make like
they would try to
put any sort of like narrative heft into the Star Wars world that they created with the first movie. So like nobody, there was obviously there were some that were like, oh, this is incredible. Look what they're doing. This is, to make it more mature and all that stuff. But then the other half of the world was just like, what did you do to my Star Wars?
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars came out in 1982 on VHS for the first time. So after Empire.
Yeah. The other side of that coin is like how ballsy to make a movie that is so much darker and so much more serious than the thing that just made a ton of money. I was watching a behind the scenes thing earlier today, and even Mark Hamill was like, "Yeah, I was surprised. Normally sequels are just kind of the same thing again, but but they sure changed it."
Empire made the least amount of the original trilogy.
I mean, I think it also there is some sense of like genre film being relegated to be, oh, it's just another sci-fi movie. It's just another kind of throwaway thing. You know, the original was very fairy tale-esque in its story structure and format, and so it's just a thing for kids. So the fact that you're a parent bringing your kid to the theater, and suddenly people are making out left and right, people are getting their hands chopped off and things like that.
Left and right.
There's a couple of makeout sessions that happen back to back.
Yeah.
There's only a left hand that gets chopped off.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's not true. What about the what's the Yeti?
That's a whole arm.
That's a whole arm. So
the Wampa.
The Wampa.
The Wampa, that's right. Hands are getting lopped off left and right.
Yeah.
But it's another one that, like, as mixed as the reviews were when it came out, I like the legacy of this movie is that, like, most film people are like, oh, it's the best one, right? I mean, I feel like that's more often the opinion than not.
I will say this about I would agree with that, and I will say this. I think of all of like the pop culture movie moments that like existed. This is the one I am the saddest that I wasn't alive for.
Oh
yeah,
100%.
Right?
About the I'm Your Father.
Yeah, because like I remember I'm not a Harry Potter fan. I did that trend just
that was like my generation.
That kind of just like that passed me by.
Yeah.
And two things. A, I'm a horrible human being because I thought it was absolutely hilarious when people were getting mad because people were driving by Barnes and Noble yelling Dumbledore dies.
Yeah.
And like I feel like that was like a generation closer to ours, like Darth is Luke's father, and the fact that I just didn't care enough to be a part of that trend. But to see Empire Strikes Back in theaters in 1981 and have like that moment where like, Luke, I am your father.
I am your father.
And
That's nuts.
Like, it's nuts.
Yeah.
It's like the world changed on that day.
It's very rare that you get to think about that you are watching a movie that was the thing that would go on to be parodied for years
decades.
And decades later, and just the thing that is such a cultural touchstone to so many people, and it's such a shorthand for modern storytelling. It's an Empire Strikes Back type scenario where it's like I know exactly what that means.
Right.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No. I am your father.
Also, like, the media didn't exist at that time to ruin it for everybody. So, like, there's no Reddit threads, there's no tweets,
That was the incredible thing about watching. You watched a lot of the behind the scenes stuff for movies of this era, and they're just talking about the movie, the whole movie. And here's what happens, and we go off this way, and we fall in love, and we get to some time. The interview with Harrison Ford, which, number one, he is as completely checked out of doing interviews around movies back then as he continues to be today, which is a comfort, I think, honestly. Like, Harrison Ford will always be salty, full stop. But he's talking about, midway through the movie, like, we go off, and Han and Princess, they kind of fall in love, and there's kissing and stuff, and it's he just describes what happens. And this is a behind the scenes documentary of, like, I'm sure it was pre-release, and so it's wild that nobody talked about Luke being or Vader being Luke's dad, but the rest of the movie, they were just it's so funny, particularly for our work, and like all the dancing we have to do around spoilers and pre-release this and that, and junket interviews and publicists saying what we can and can't talk about, and all this other stuff.
Are we going to put a spoiler warning over this discussion of a 40-year movie?
I'm going to go ahead and say we didn't.
Where are the Easter eggs revealed? Did someone explain the story ending to me?
No. Did the Star Wars ending explained? Yeah, we'll get to that. Mixed reviews being what they were, it did still win a couple Academy Awards. It got
I'm sure all the technical stuff swept all the technical stuff.
Best sound, and then it got a special achievement. You know how we love our special achievements. They're like, you did something so incredible, we're going to invent a trophy for you. But it was a special achievement for best VFX, and then nominated for art direction and score. But so it was just the
fact that
3.5.
The fact that Williams couldn't, did he win the score for Star Wars 1?
I don't remember. I don't know. But I like John Williams and what he won for and what he didn't is so irrelevant at this point. Like, it's just because I mean, you know, there's always a conversation. It's like, is this John Williams' best score? I do think it's my favorite bit of Star Wars music, though.
Yeah, he won for Star Wars.
He won for the first Star Wars. Yeah. This movie in particular is one that has examples of like everybody knows what the fanfare sounds like. Everybody knows what the Imperial March sounds like. Everybody knows what Darth Vader's personal like Han and Leia's theme. I love. Like, there's so many different kinds of music and different themes that you can still kind of just hum out of nowhere that all live in this one movie. I think it's probably his best, my favorite anyway. Because I mean that's the thing about Empire, and one of the things that I do want to talk about at some point, just in the generality of talking about Empire Strikes Back, is what it did for the idea of sequels. I think it became, you know, I mean, we rattled off Jaws and Jaws 2, and, you know, obviously there's you made money, you get to make another one. Godfather 2, like, that told one continuous story. I think
more than sequels, this cemented the trilogy.
It introduced us to the idea of, like, continual storytelling, right? Like, you know, a sequel that begs for another sequel. Like, I don't know that there were any prior to this. Like, James Bond that's been around since the 60s, but they never did sequels.
Yeah,
they didn't do sequels
episodic.
until Daniel Craig, you know,
And
so, like...
The Godfather 2, I mean, is also a very famous and successful sequel that happened before this. But even that kind of ended that story. Like, implicit in the creation of Empire Strikes Back is the creation of Return of the Jedi. Right. Because this also ends on a cliffhanger.
Yeah. I mean, that's the idea that we're going to keep making these. Yeah. Like, franchising this thing it was what we expect from franchises like this now. Like, we can have a darker tone, we can have more mature themes, we can be grown up about what we're doing here. Like, that comes from Empire Strikes Back.
And you know, I think it's easy to scoff at nowadays, but I think it is kind of wild to think about it in the context of it came out and it assumes that you had already seen the movie. It does a pretty good job of setting up who all the characters are up front, but
it's got that opening crawl.
Well, Nick, there's 3 paragraphs of context.
No, but like
for those that haven't seen it.
But yeah, kids can't read, right? So they got to figure.
Well, no, back then they could.
Back then they couldn't read. Yeah, no, we can read now though.
But it assumes that you had seen it and you know how these characters behave, and I think much of Luke's arc in this movie is predicated on the fact that you knew him as the farm boy from the first one and see how much he's changed by the end of this movie, and I think that's pretty bold and interesting.
Yeah, when he was whining about going to Tashi Station, which
as opposed to all the whining he doesn't do in this movie.
Dude, bro.
All right, let's get into some brilliant moments, mostly because I want Cal to be able to talk specifically about the whiningness that, you know,
he's a brilliant whiner.
Brilliant moments of whining. I don't really want to break down. There's not narratively at all. I don't.
Do we? I mean, like, listen. There is a million YouTube videos breaking down the lore.
No, that's not us.
I came here to learn about Lobot. You guys are going to tell me about Lobot today?
I mean, I'll send you a link to his Wikipedia page later, but the biggest set pieces that we need to go through, and the ones that we can talk about, the stuff that I think we all find truly fascinating about this movie, the Hoth battle and the asteroid chase. Like, those are the 2 highlights of this movie. The rest of it is cool, does its job, but, like, for this movie to be made in 1980 and to do the things that it did technically with ILM, part of the reason the VFX budget I read was so expensive for this movie was it included building ILM's first office. Jesus. Like, the VFX
I mean, it's
budget
literally formative for
building.
An entire production studio.
So, I mean, you know, what do we want? Cal, you want to get started with stuff about the Hoth battle?
Let's start with the Battle of Hoth and just, like, how sophisticated everything is, right? Like, this is the first time that they're doing stuff where it's like they're doing stop at motion animation with the motion control, and that is taking not only that stop motion animation to another level, but also the motion control itself.
Motion control being like
The cameras.
yeah,
right?
programming cameras to move exactly the same way
spot.
2 separate times.
Yeah. So did you get to the
Nope,
American?
I let you have it this
Great.
time.
Awesome.
It's all
So
you, man.
The American cinematographer article is also talking about, like, in this one, they developed the motion camera to allow it to be controlled by a human being, right? And then it'll record the human motion so it can duplicate it. So they are able to shoot live action
In the snow.
in the snow, but also on the sound stages, right?
Yeah.
So like when we're talking about like scenes like when they're in the rebel base, like they're able to motion track to these like matte paintings and stuff like that,
Right.
because that's how you get those that's how you get such dynamic shots, is because on set there's a guy running the motion control camera, and he's just like, you know, doing the dolly in, doing all that, and then the machine is like recording that, and then the machine is going to replicate that exact move on the matte painting. So
And on the miniature stage.
and on the miniature
Yeah.
stage. So when they compose it all works in the move, and the fact that they figured all of that shit out is fascinating to me.
My favorite part about that too is there's no way around it, and there's no tweaking. You just have to do the whole thing again,
Yeah.
right? Like you can't just put a thing. You can't just like, well, I'm gonna put the snow speeder here. That doesn't look quite right. Let me nudge it that way a little bit. Like, nope, it's already too late.
I want to talk a lot more
Because doing all this stuff photochemically is like you're so dialed in. You have to know exactly what you want creatively, how to make it happen technically, and you have to be able to do it the right way on the first time. Like, and it's the people that make this movie are the smartest humans have ever been, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's like doing magic tricks with your eyes closed.
Yeah.
Right? Because like the other thing that we're going to talk about when we get more into the asteroid chase, because that's where the like real sophistication I feel comes in, with like the concept of like layering.
Yeah.
And we'll relate this to anybody that has opened Photoshop or After Effects and stuff like that, because how the they thought about that shit just blows my mind.
Yeah.
At least with like the Battle of Hoth, way more sizzle and like sophisticated means, but it doesn't have the amount of objects in the frame that the
asteroid stuff.
chase will have. Not taking away from it, right? Like Phil Tippett's like stop motion animated AT-ATs and AT-STs, all that stuff looks great. And like
and the Tauntauns.
And the Tauntaun,
and the
yeah.
Tauntauns. I have this great quote that they that when they're talking about like all of the cameras that ILM uses to do this stuff, he's like, our work generally seemed to involve either a half second or 30 seconds of exposure per frame, or 100 frames per second, or some other multiple of normal speed. Not much material was shot at sound speed because we were always taking advantage of some quirk in the persistence of vision to affect our tricky photography in one manner or another. And like that is the level of sophistication that
these
these
dudes
guys
understand how eyeballs work.
These dudes understand how specifically your eye interprets 24 frames a second, and how they can cheat the ratios of how things are shot.
The persistence of vision is the idea that film is in essence a bunch of still frames, but our brains connect it to make
it look like motion.
Yeah, we interpret it as fluid movement.
The one thing that stands out to me about the Battle of Hoth is obviously the AT-AT stuff is so cool. I think it's just scale.
Real quick, AT-AT or AT-ATs?
I say AT-AT.
I always say AT-AT.
Yeah, so do I. Good. I just want to make sure.
It's the scale of it.
It's like
Somebody calls them AT-ATs.
how do you pronounce the ATS?
Yeah, you don't go AT-ATs.
Atset.
No, you don't. You say ATST,
If you
which is
call
why
it
you also say
it's like the equivalent
AT-AT.
of like I'm at the arcade. Oh, I got 5 mans left. I was like, what'd you call it?
I'm sorry.
The
What?
mans? I've heard that. It's lives.
Lives,
friend. I'm on what board are you on? You mean level?
Yeah.
But it's the scale of Hoth that's so impressive to me. They are able to sell the illusion of a full scale invasion and warfare with a pretty modest budget, at least until they decided they needed a lot more.
Yeah.
You said that this was crafted and created by some of the smartest people to ever exist, and I think that is a testament.
We say it like that.
The smartest.
Ooh, did I say that?
You
No,
claimed
yeah, I'll stand by
this.
that. Yeah.
But no, like it's just this level of intuitiveness and go-getter attitude that I really appreciate on any production set. Of we need to do this. let's figure out how to
Yeah.
get it done. And I think that speaks to Irving Kershner's kind of background coming up under Corman, and getting really scrappy with what they can do on a set, and just figuring out and empowering the right people to make those decisions.
So there's the only way you could do anything. Like you had to get it in camera, or you had to get it in a camera of some kind, even if you had to get it in 5 separate cameras, and then you put it in an optical printer, which is effectively like 3 cameras tied together, like shooting stuff back and forth at each other.
So those AT-ATs are being stop motion animated, right? It's like Phil Tippett. What does he say in the most amazingly dry, like, behind the scenes?
There's a great
interview?
behind the scenes thing where he's just talking about, like, you move it here and then you move it there, and then there's 68 frames we took, and it took us a week and a half.
Yeah, right. So like he is doing that 1 frame at a time. Like, they might have it lit in a way where they let it like expose for a minute. It's just like, and then to get the snow speeder stuff, right, that has to look fast and fluid, so they're going to shoot that at a higher frame rate, and they're figuring out those ratios where it's like, if like Tippett's animating on 2s, right, but like the snow speeder is being like shot on like 48s,
Probably,
right?
yeah, more than that.
Yeah.
I did stumble across something else where they were talking about you can get away with smaller miniatures at higher frame rates.
Yeah.
So if you shoot 100 frames a second, you can get away with like a 6th scale something or other. But if you're shooting at sound speed, like, you can't. And so it's like then it needs to be full scale. Which was interesting. I never heard that before. So it makes a lot of sense.
So they're playing with all those ratios, right? So they have like this, like they're doing the snow speeders and stuff like that. So like that shit is being shot at a faster frame rate, which is above sound speed, and then the AT-ATs are being animated in stop motion, and then they're figuring out these friggin' ratios, like the goddamn geniuses they are, slapping it together in an optical printer,
and then
like,
there's
Bob's your uncle.
And then there's a guy that's hand painting the tow cables
and then
onto the screen. And so it's like the number of different craftsmen and different trades that go into that all need to be operating at the top of the game, and also in like very specific order and cadence that's controlled from the top down to get 72 frames of an AT-AT falling over is incredible.
And because and like that shit is so expensive, because what they can't do is just have random rebel soldiers going over there, fucking suction cupping up, throwing in a grenade, taking down a huge AT-AT. Yeah. It's like, no, we have to have like all these like ship battles.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I hate. It's just that like Luke has to take. How the does the Empire allow Luke to take down an entire AT-AT by himself?
He's a Jedi.
He's not.
Yeah.
He's not.
Come on,
The Force is just strong
He's
with him
got
at
the
this
makings
point.
The
of
Force
one.
is strong with him, but he didn't use any Force. He just used a grappling hook. Did the like most hilarious like.
I love, and this is the great thing about talking about Empire Strikes Back too, is like you can go into minutia about who uses an optical printer and how and why that pisses me off about Luke Skywalker. Like there's that A to B makes total sense when we're talking about Empire Strikes Back.
All this craftsmanship to make futuristic galactic warfare look real and cool, and then to save a couple of bucks, they just have number 1 on the call sheet kind of dangling.
It's a clever.
But you have to.
It's a clever use of resources to give him like, oh, this dude is special,
100%.
and it's a great showcase because like. I mean, apart from the trench run, he never really does anything particularly interesting. He's seated for the entirety of the trench run at the end of A New Hope, right?
Yeah.
So having him physically do something that we've never seen him do before, it's like, dude, the stakes have shot up.
Bro, he didn't use the targeting computer, all right? So like,
there's literally nothing. He did nothing.
Cable out. Let her go. Detach cable. Cable detached.
This is the other thing I love about this movie is after the success of Star Wars, to then open the next movie with this massive battle sequence, a sequence that is like
it doesn't
bigger.
stop.
It's bigger than anything that they did in the first movie, right? Like because the first movie is like, what's strange. This feels better because like it feels bigger. obviously space is infinite or whatever, and so like a massive a moon-sized space station is big, right? This feels bigger to me because we have a frame of reference for this.
Yeah.
Like we've stood on the ground looking up at mountains in the distance and seen how tall buildings are and things like that, and so we have a frame of reference for how big and scary these AT-ATs are, and so like it feels just bigger.
3 theaters of war that happen too in this battle for Hoth. We start in space, we have interior base, and then we have exterior base, and seeing them all converge on each other is just so exciting, and it feels like a real like World War II battle play out in real time in a sci-fi setting. It's awesome.
And it's still like the structure of this movie. To open this movie with a lot of nonstop action it's a choice that when you think about movies in general and how they're built is strange, because like movies generally, like the biggest set piece in your entire movie is what is 20 minutes in. It's not, we're not wrapping up with the biggest set piece. It's the act 1 set piece. Like you don't do that. But like this is a movie that is anticipated. It comes after. I bet if you had people walk out of the movie at the halfway point, they would have said, this is just as good as the original Star Wars. This is great. Like, because it doesn't really get super heavy until they get out after the asteroid chase and all that stuff. And then it starts to slow down and starts to deal with the characters a little bit more and all this stuff. But like the idea that Star Wars changed everything. Star Wars was such a huge hit that we got to start our next movie like at that same pace
with the rising action.
It makes so much sense in that context, which is, again, it's one of these things where like this is what we expect from sequels, like this is Empire Strikes Back. I think what we know of big tentpole sequels, it all comes from here.
It has a beautiful, like, I guess, blank check script thing where you no longer have to get the goodwill of the audience for your hero. They already have that from the first one. So you're just immediately in your rising action, and it's not until I would think it was like 37 minutes when we leave Hoth finally, but up into that moment you have the Wampa encounter in the cave, the Luke's missing in the snowstorm, and then the Battle of Hoth, and it is just non-stop.
There's a moment, I think it's about 20 minutes in when Vader's like, yep, that's the place, let's go. And from there it's more or less real time until
they're in the
asteroid field.
We have X amount of time before
I mean, it's not officially real time because people got to put their helmets on and stuff like that, but like we're meant to be experiencing it as though it is happening.
And not to get too cynical about like the scope of this stuff, but I can't help but like look at this movie from the joy of a kid and of like toy potential, not from like I am the guy who's going to make money, but like I want to know everything about all of these people and all of these locations. It's a testament to the art direction in the film where the Rebel base is again expanding on the lived-in fiction of the original Star Wars, and this is a scrappy outfit of rebels who are basically rubbing two sticks together to produce fire.
To your point,
let's put the stormtroopers in new helmets, and let's give new uniforms to the pilots.
But
different kinds of planes,
and it's
different and we haven't even gotten to the rogues gallery of bounty hunters that are all going to get their own action figures either.
But to your point, right? Like the whole Battle of Hoth is actually just a structured retreat. Like they know
they get their asses kicked.
But like it's not even that they get their asses kicked. They knew they were gonna lose. Like it's just like we just gotta hold them off long enough so all the transport ships can get.
Which again, like coming on the heels of Star Wars and the medal ceremony at the end of Star, that was the last time we saw these people. They were getting medals in front of a room full of people, and everything was glitzy and.
The war has not gone in their favor.
This is great. And then we cut the next time we see them, they're hiding in a hole under the snow, and like running away, which is like. That's where we're taking. Okay, cool.
And it's a pretty complex idea for a war sequence, right? Of just our goal is not to win, our goal is to survive and escape. Like that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and you can see why on the day the reaction was so mixed.
Also, man, production design. To your point, firing on all cylinders. AT-ATs and the snow speeders, two of the coolest vehicles to come out of Star Wars, period.
I mean, that initial reveal of the AT-AT, I think, is my favorite, like, my small, brilliant moment where you see it arrive on the scanner. POV, you see it through, like, the Technicolor, like, green framing, and then it pulls out to reveal it wide and big. It's like, it's just so impressive and so intimidating.
And the sound, too. Like, we can talk about Ben Burt for a second, because we'll bring him up again later, but, like, I saw an interview with him where he was talking about all the different places that they went to go and record sound. And his approach, he was like, look, you know, there's a practical reason for this, because all of the different sound speeds, or all the different speeds at which we're shooting these things, some of it is stop motion, some of it is 100 frames a second, some like there's no sound for any of this. So it's like it's a blank canvas to start with no matter what. On top of that, we're in space, we're on a different planet, we're using laser blasters, there are animals we've never seen before. Like it is both practically and creatively a completely blank slate. And so he was like, we went to the Hoover Dam and recorded like a bunch of like winches and like them sort of flushing the Hoover Dam or whatever. And then we went to they were on aircraft carriers recording the sounds of the elevators and the hydraulic lifts there. They went to missile ranges. Most interesting thing that I heard him say was like they had people make custom arrows, like that specifically made different sounds and like fired them past microphones.
That's awesome.
Which, like they made custom arrows which is why like Ben Burt is an absolute legend in the field, and like the way that he can create sounds, the fact that he made the sound of a lightsaber, and everybody knows what that is. Like we've talked about that plenty before, but this guy is a true genius, and where they went out and just recorded whatever. Like I just go over there and recorded those missiles launching at that army base. And some of that's in there, and it's in there mixed in with 3 dozen other sound effects. But where I thought of him in regards to the Hoth sound is like the AT-ATs walking, the big crunch and the sort of the hydraulic sounding of the legs kind of moving and rotating. There's a little bit of rust to it there, which all of that feels like if it were clean sound effects, there's that mechanical kind of grit to those sounds that contributes to that very lived in, very realistic texture. As fake as this appears, none of it, those things don't exist, but tanks exist. We kind of know what those sounds like.
You have a point of reference.
Like, you have a little bit of a point of reference, but it becomes something new and something scarier, and I don't know, the sound design in this movie, in all of these movies, is incredible.
Star Wars is what happens, the original trilogy is what happens when you get a room full of nerds who are very good at what they do, and just let them kind of, controlled, but let them do what they're best at. Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about it.
Which was also the beautiful thing about the way that he financed the thing, right? Is like he paid for it himself, so he got to do what he wanted. And what he wanted was to give the right people the right tools to do the thing.
It's also crazy that like you could do that. Period. Can you imagine an individual? I mean, it did happen, and it only notably happened once this year, ironically behind a contemporary of Coppola. Like Coppola's like, I'm going to drop $127 million of my own money to make Megapolis, which I'm a fan.
It's a big swing, right?
Yeah,
and we always like big swings.
Yeah. But like the fact that Star Wars Empire Strikes Back was achievable based on the wallet of a singular individual, even though he is like synonymous with the movie business and success, is wild.
Oh, he wasn't in 1979 when they were making it.
He was. This is
he had Star Wars.
Yeah,
full stop. And
he also had American Graffiti.
He did.
He and Indy.
Not yet. Not until next year. Raiders was 81. Because in fact, that's one of the reasons why he didn't want to direct this, is because he was already moving over.
On Raiders,
he was prepping Raiders too. That's a whole other fascinating behind the scenes thing. But his relationship with the DGA and WGA, and it's partially why he shot it in the UK, because they didn't have the same rules there. And and a lot of it, I think, was because of the opening crawl and the opening credits and the DGA's rules about where directors and assistant directors have to be credited. and he didn't want to put credits in the front.
yeah.
He wanted all the credits at the end, and so like there was like lawsuits, and he had to pay fines, and Kirshner got fined, but Lucas paid for it.
Right.
But yeah, for him to leverage himself at that point, like he paid for a lot of it. He put a lot up as a collateral for just a big loan. And I read at some point, the bank was just like, you're done getting money. And he was like, am I though? And I don't think he was, because the budget just kept going up and up. And but it worked again, Yeah. And Return of the Jedi, I imagine, was more of the same and easier, because he shot it in his backyard.
How we're gonna get out of this one?
Low-key, a very accomplished bit of storytelling is how easily the audience is spatially aware of all of the fronts of the war that is currently being fought by both sides, right? So not only are you aware of like the Empire's like ships in orbit, you're aware of their tanks and stuff on the ground
assault,
and then you're also aware of their like troops that are like invading the base. And conversely, you're also aware of the rebels who have their defensive line, who are defending the rebel base, who are like operating the ion cannon, which is a cool ass gun that it's just like, do they fly that in there? Like, how do you does Hoth come with an ion cannon?
Do they take it apart and bring it with them?
It's made out of wampas, actually.
So like the fact that like
scene.
They're trying to keep people in the base. They have the defensive line that's fighting the AT-ATs. They are also systematically retreating all of their transports, like packing up their entire base, putting it on ships, and getting out of town like the circus.
Yeah.
And like fighting the entire time. And the audience is not only aware of what both sides want, what each side's goal is, also keeping track of like the individual characters and what they're trying to do. It's fascinating.
It's like the pyramid rule of action, right?
Yeah.
Like it's you want to see the characters, the individual, and like you see how Luke's got to take out this AT-AT. Like the base levels, we know they're going for the shield generator so that they can invade, right? Like, and then we know that from up there, they're going to do that by blowing it up with an AT-AT. You could take one step up. You see Luke is
he's going to be
the
snow speeder pilot.
He's going to be a snow speeder pilot. Then you can track Luke even narrower than that. You can see, well, now he's shot down, so what's he going to do now? And then you go through all of this, so you know that when he slices open the belly and throws in that grenade, you know that defeating that AT-AT is going to trickle down all those other levels that we're already aware of, because it's been so cleanly set up. Lord of the Rings was another, like the two towers, the Helm's Deep sequence, and that is so good about that as well. But Empire and the Hoth battle is one of those too, where you can see the actions of one person have an effect on the entire battle.
Because and to your point, right? Like at that same time, like Vader is invading the base, and like Han is like finishing up replacing like the radiator on the Falcon, and he's just like, gotta get out,
while also juggling and like coming to terms with his romantic feelings for Leia as she is with him. So amidst this global conflict, we also have a nice personal interrelationship problem between this weird love triangle between Han, Leia, and Luke.
Right.
She's very clearly using Luke to get him jealous.
But can we talk about Leia for 1 second and how great she is in this movie? I think there's a certain amount of damsel in distress, to her character, but like her on Hoth, the way that she's commanding the rooms is great.
I mean, she's a general.
She's a general, and she's every bit the general. Like it's not. There's no amount of like, well, I have to listen to this princess anymore. Like she owns that hangar every time she's got everybody, and it was. Another behind the scenes thing is like she was doing that on set too.
Yeah,
like that's just who Carrie Fisher was.
I can imagine her as an AD, just like, all right, we're doing this next. All right, everyone get in line.
And this is another thing in terms of like what sequels should do based on the formula that Empire set forth is like, you open it up to where characters take sort of logical next steps, and having 3 years worth of fighting and tooth and nail kind of surviving for the rebellion, and you can see how that's changed all of these characters. And I think Leia's I think Han is the most Han he's ever Han in this movie. Like this is like pure Han, and it's the same is true for Leia. I think her being a leader and that sort of spark plug that she was, like, you call this a rescue in the first movie, is now translated to like she's a legitimate leader and nobody questions it, is great.
Personally, one of my, I think, faults is being able to identify things that make performances good from an acting perspective, just because I've never acted. But watching this time around, seeing Leia understand, like, I watched Carrie Fisher portray Leia as, I am someone of importance and of value, but I am also a general, but also juggling her weight as a political figure versus her duty to the troops was something that I'd never really noticed before. And seeing her wanting to do her job while also coming to terms with, I cannot be captured.
Yeah.
Like, that was pretty impressive.
Her
to
not
me.
wanting to come and pull away
she was
from like
already
the radar
captured
or
once.
whatever.
Yeah.
As far as Han is concerned, I do think that Han's best moments are still in A New Hope.
Yeah.
I mean, like, Han shooting first is an awesome moment.
It's a good character moment.
And also, just like, I absolutely f***ing love. I'm not in this for your phony rebellion. Like, I expect to be well paid.
Yeah.
Like, that is a great line, because like, what's good about this movie is it's like all of that sets up the great babyface turn that Han does at the end, where he, like, you know, comes in and now now Han's like one of the guys he's bought in, right?
Yeah.
But like that reserve of just like he's only looking out for himself. It's just like him and his dog against the world. Like that needs to exist, and it's incredible that that exists in a whole feature-length film to this part, so you can get to see like the softer side of Han.
Yeah.
You know?
The rogue breaks character at the end of the movie.
And that's what I like about it. It's what I like about it, though, right? Is like all of that bravado in the first movie is cool, and that's who he is. But what was underneath the whole time is this Han in Empire Strikes Back.
The I love you, I know guy.
The I love you, I know guy. Yeah, and not only that, but it's not my fault. Yeah. And it's I love that when they can't. It's one of the times they can't get the hyperdrive to work. And the like, listen, it's not fair. Like that line for me, I was like, that is Han Solo to me. Like, God damn it! This should be going better than this. Like, it's not fair. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. I love that moment from Han Solo, and like that is my particular flavor of Han.
Loses his cool.
Yeah, where you know it all of it drops, and that's I think this is the most interesting part about it is like all of that. Like, I expect to be well paid for this bravado is gone. Mm-hmm. And he's just the guy. He's like, I might die soon, and I don't want to.
It's the beauty of a sequel, right? Because A New Hope establishes the archetypes. It is, you know, you have your knight in shining armor, you have the devilish rogue, and you have the princess. And then in Empire Strikes Back, we get to see them shed those, you know, archetypes that are iconic in storytelling and become something entirely new. Now your chivalrous knight is no longer certain of who he serves. Your rogue is kind of afraid, and
they become real and textured people.
Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah. It goes from primitive characters to just more complex stuff, and it's it's fascinating.
And it has to just get most of the action out of the way first.
Yeah. And medias res, right? We just start in the middle of a war.
Let's start sprinting. But let's talk about this asteroid chase. And this is where we can get to your optical printers, Cal, because like the idea that of like showing a spaceship flying through an asteroid field, like to do that now, like okay, sure.
They shoot that in the volume like every other day.
We can do that in After Effects.
How many asteroids do you want?
Yeah, exactly. And then, well, no, actually, I was wrong. I want fewer. It's like, okay, great. Point and click, and they're gone. It's a little more complicated than that. But that's the broad strokes of it. In 1980, however, to do a sequence in space, you had to layer literally everything on screen on a new piece of film. Like, it was all mechanical. It was
three
all
pieces of film.
Yeah.
So
walk me through this.
Go ahead.
Okay, so let's just take one of these asteroid shots, right? So it's the Falcon going through the asteroid belt. So you got the Starfield, which is a shot in and of itself, right? Then you have all of the asteroids. Now they're shot in layers. Some of like the background ones, they'll be shot in a bunch. So it's just a bunch of like let's say like 7 or 8 potatoes.
They were actual potatoes.
They were actual potatoes, right? Like 7 or 8 potatoes, like on it, like on a thing, and then the camera like swoops by, right? Yeah. Then you got to shoot the Falcon. So then the Falcon is there. It does it like not only is the camera on the motion control, but the Falcon itself is on a motion control because it's gonna swoop in close to the camera, do its thing, right? Then you gotta shoot each one of the TIE fighters individually, doing the same thing as you did the Falcon. Then you need to shoot the foreground asteroids, right? And those will be shot on an individual basis because they're going to be real touchy with those,
they have
right?
to be layers that show up on top of the Falcon.
Then you have to go take all of that blue screen footage, and then for each and every layer that you exposed, whatever take you want to use, right? You have to print it, look at it, then you have to do the garbage mat of it, which is like basically just using
because all of these things are being shot in front of blue screen.
Blue screen, right? But the garbage mat, where the garbage mat comes from, I only know like the garbage mat stuff on like After Effects of like I just gotta like move the box around and be primitive, right? But it's literally a guy just like taking some like pieces of like I don't know, an opaque thing, right? To like block out.
It's just black cardboard.
Black cardboard out, right? To like black it out, so you just kind of have the frame, right?
And they're physically just moving it frame by frame.
Just
it's because you've done it in Premiere, I'm sure, where you just draw 4 points and you have to keyframe those points.
Exactly, and then you're keyframing it as it follows it across, right? But then you have to get the fine mat, right? Get all of the little get rid of all of the blue all around it. That is a chemical thing, right? So like they go through. Now
you put it in the right bath and the blue becomes black and the everything else becomes just white or clear, right?
Technically, yes.
See, I can't even get my
sorry. The way that they compose these shots, they compose them from like the bottom up, right? So there will be the star field. Then on top of the star field, they are going to overlay every one of those positive mats, which is like the clear around it, but the thing, right? Whether it's Millennium Falcon or the Asteroid, that will be the black, right? So all of that clear, like all of those like clear with the black will be overlaid, and that'll be run on the starfield background. So what it doesn't do, so when they run, like they start the print, the star field is only where the star field is visible is what is exposed, and then they'll peel one of those away, and then they'll do each print on top of it.
So they basically have to build the shot, and then expose one piece of film from the bottom up. By all of those mats, the positive mats are like saving a spot on that piece of film for the Falcon to be exposed, for the asteroid to be exposed. And again, like all of the ways that they had to program the cameras to move the same way to actually shoot that, they also had to line up cameras on the optical printer to like print it a certain way.
So you don't have the lines around the mat.
And it is true genius.
I mean, it's a feat of human ingenuity.
Exactly.
Nuts.
It's one of these things because it's mechanical, it's photochemical. Like it's a science that you can sort of figure out. You can like work your way. But the way that it's one of these things where the right brain and the left brain really have to work together. Right? There's an engineering feat involved in everything that you just described, but it comes from a creative place of being like, what's going to look cool is the Millennium Falcon swooping towards camera and then swooping back, because that'll be more exciting and more engaging to watch for 38 frames.
To bring it back to what you were all talking about, what we spent a decent amount of time talking about on the Indiana Jones thing is like we're comparing set pieces, right? And I am an unabashed fan of Last Crusade. I know you guys are more Raiders guys, but what we were doing was comparing the train chase to the boulder, right? To the boulder chase. And the boulder chase on paper, at least like from a physical production standpoint, is a kind of easier thing to do than all of those than the train chase across like the circus train, right? This is more or less that same thing to that same effect, which is more like basically like they come out of hyperspace, where's Alderaan, and then like couple of TIE fighters chase them down, and then like they have to go in the gunning pit and be like, and it's like, hey, I got one,
right?
And then it's like, don't get cocky, and then like this is like that taken to the next level,
right?
You're not actually going into an asteroid field.
They'd be crazy to follow us, wouldn't they?
You don't have to do this to impress me.
Sir, the possibility of successfully navigating an asteroid field is approximately 3,720 to 1.
Never tell me the odds.
To look at how far they came in those 3 years, like think about the those TIE fighters that they're fending off as they escape the Death Star in the first movie. Think about how slow it looks like they're moving. And the camera kind of pans with them. Camera doesn't move, like it doesn't swoop. Like it's subtle, and they're doing it, but it's subtle and it's attainable. What the stretch that they made to do so much more with this asteroid chase is insane. Like it's exponentially harder what they decided to do, because now the camera's moving fast, the TIE fighters are moving faster, they're spinning out of control and exploding, and like all of this, it's nuts how far they went in 3 years.
To your point, right? It's crazy how huge of an evolution that 3 years in that technology provided, and how great the Empire Strikes Back still looks compared to the 40 years of that literally revolutionized visual effects since then. And there are movies that come out today that still just don't hold a candle to Empire Strikes Back.
They just don't look as good.
Yeah, they just don't look as good. And part of that is more about like the artist than it is the tool.
Sure.
Like they knew what they wanted to make.
Yeah.
Understanding the limitations of the technology and doing it in a way that avoids those limitations or hides them, because you didn't know that what was and wasn't possible. It just looks incredible and it's captivating.
Yeah. Every time there's that jump in technology, right? Like the first wave of it is people that are like, oh, here's a cool tool to add to my bag. It's the same thing in the early 90s with like Jurassic Park, Terminator 2, where it's like we can do computer stuff, but we're going to do it in a way that accentuates what we can already do. And we know how to work it in. But then by the time you get to Armageddon, like in the mid 90s, like that looks like trash.
Let me ask you this question. Do you think these things stand up the way that they do because of how much thought and planning needs to go into execution? Like how much pre-production thought and planning needs to go into execution of these things? Because again, like this is all physical, right? Like all of this stuff needs to work in a physical level. It needs to be shot, like perspectives needs to match, like all the camera tech. It's like, we're going to shoot this at 48 frames a second. We're going to animate this at 12. When we combine them in the middle, we know that it's gonna like work. Like all of that planning, all of that math, all of that thought needs to go into designing these things. Where now it's like it's just computers. So it's like we'll shoot a couple of plates with him on the green screen and see what we can figure out in post.
Like look that way and be surprised.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. I do think the proof is in the fact that they had to invent stuff.
Yeah.
Like they invented camera tech. Like they had to invent the camera that could shoot at high enough speed on a big enough format on a miniature stage that could then also be programmed to mimic or to replicate the movement of a camera on set, which is like they just had to make that. And so it's like how do you know that you have to invent something to accomplish something is you have to know what you want to begin with, right? Like you have to have a super clear idea of what the goal is, because you're like, well, I don't have the tool to get to that goal, so let me go invent a tool real quick.
I guess how to make the most of the medium is the medium relying on itself to grow within itself to some extent. It's like understanding how it works well enough in order to push it further and further.
Not only that, but it's also just like working really well with like Chris McQuarrie, right? Like having because like these things have to be, to your point, like how do you get to a finished image, right? Like it has to be meticulously storyboarded out, knowing exactly what motion you're looking for, because then they'll go off and like what I was reading is like they will go off and test shoot some of this stuff, and they'll test shoot it in black and white that they would develop on site to make sure it does in fact work. And it's like, so like even if they had an idea to do something, they'd have to go get film stock, shoot it, develop it, see if it worked right there. It's just not like taking a pause, like, all right, let me go look at that in camera quick. Like it's just everything is a process.
Well, and so expensive to do again that if it doesn't work, even if they're like studio notes, there's nothing the studio can do about it. Like it's done. It's in the can. Like it's too expensive, too time consuming. We literally can't go and do this shot again. So it is what it is. And and we're making like the asteroid chase again, since technically I guess we're still talking about the asteroid chase. It's like you can't, like there's no coverage. Like they shot what they storyboarded.
There is a little bit of tragic irony, though, of the special editionification of Star Wars, of just, so much meticulous planning, so much of everything we're talking about, of, it was so many people's day in and day out of planning these meticulous small things that were hyper detailed, and everyone's firing on all cylinders. And, some posthumously going back and like, this could use like a cool alien CG.
Sure.
But that's what stands out, though. And I think, it's an interesting approach of looking at a contemporary use of CG versus the practical, and seeing them side by side, and how much seeing them side by side really accentuates how they don't work particularly well together when they're injected, I would argue, a little haphazardly.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's, the special edition is always a talking point around Star Wars too, because like there was 3 different purposes for those.
Yeah.
Put them back out in theaters, make some more money, test some of his new tech before he went and made the prequels, and drum up excitement about the franchise again before they go and do the prequels, and then pay for the prequels. But the special editioning of Empire, I think, is, I don't know, I've always thought this was like the worst one in terms of the special edition, and this is I'd be more definitive about that if not for the song and dance number in Return of the Jedi.
Seeing the stormtroopers riding the lizard dudes on
the dewbacks.
the dewbacks in New Hope is a little bit rough.
It's a little rough. But
Also, like the wall that they put in front of R2 when he's just rolling around.
Yeah, and it's what really bugs me about these editions, and I don't know if it was a special edition or not, or because there was another, but the tinkering that has been done with Star Wars from the very beginning, like that's the other thing, is like it didn't start with the special editions, right? Like, and I hadn't heard this before until I was doing some reading for this, but like between the time that it opened as a limited release to 3 weeks later when they opened wider, he added new shots in.
Wow.
So like even like he thought the ending, it wasn't super clear where Lando was and where they were on the medical frigate or whatever, that they went and shot some new plates of different, of the fleet, kind of wide shots of the fleet. They went and shot another batch of those and put it in there with some more music and stuff like that. And he redid the ending of the movie in the 3 weeks between releasing limited and releasing wide. Like, so there's never been a moment where he wasn't still tinkering with this movie,
I
think that's true for, which, again, we spent a lot of time talking about how the dude paid for it himself.
Yeah.
So it's like, go nuts, man.
He can do what he wants. And I do appreciate that sense of it was always on his mind, which understandably so. And I understand that from the perspective of like, this is his baby. And he's just wants it to be correct.
I do miss the Emperor's chimpanzee eyes.
They're very upsetting.
It's very weird. It's very upsetting.
It makes them look inhuman, which I dig.
Yeah, no, it's great. And then the other thing that bugs me about special edition, it's the lines that get added. And I don't know if it was a special edition or if it was like the Blu-rays in 2006 or whenever those came out. But, when Luke gets to Dagobah and says, I have the strangest feeling, like we're being watched. In the current edition, the one that I watched anyway, Yoda says, feels like what? In between that. And it's like, no, don't say that. Like that just ruins it takes the feeling that Luke's having and gets rid of it completely.
It spells it out very clearly.
Here's a guy with whom the Force is strong, going to learn from the Master Jedi, and you're not even going to let him have some sort of intuition about being watched. It's like, come on. That's that McClunky nonsense. It's just really upsetting to me. What else do we want to talk about? I mean, we can nerd out about late 70s optical printers a little bit more. I think we covered that pretty well.
I mean, it is just a testament to this movie that it's utilizing so many different art forms all at once. Like, we haven't even gotten into the puppetry, like live action with the puppetry.
From the Tauntauns to
Yoda.
Wampa to Yoda.
Yoda basically is a real person to me, as far as I'm concerned. With Frank Oz, just brought him to life, and just everything looks correct. And you just forget you're watching a little mannequin puppet dude.
No, he's an incredible puppet.
They're so clever with their use of showing you every part of Yoda. It's like, there's no trickery here. This is a real thing. And I really appreciate that.
And even when he's on the backpack, like doing flips, he's like, we're far enough away that it's that thing about knowing what to show and how much you can show and how long you can show it. when Luke's running and then Yoda's talking, like he's bobbing up and down and he's kind of facing the other way and like, but that's just it's a teddy bear.
Can't really blink.
Yeah, no, he's not moving at all. It's just like bouncing up and down on Luke's back. But then as soon as you get closer, like then you set him down and then he's a puppet again. I do think they built most of that stage like 5 feet off the ground, so that they could have
the
underneath.
Puppeteers underneath.
Anything else?
Step up in lightsaber battles.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think we could say that like the Obi-Wan Darth Vader lightsaber battle. Like if there was ever anything that the special editions should have probably went back and redone, it's probably that.
Yeah.
Because it's like here's like these two older masters at like I'm not gonna go as far as to say at the height of their game. Like they don't need to be flipping around and shit, but like at least
give me a stunt double in there.
Yeah,
Come on.
you know, give me something, not a little.
Yeah.
A little of this, you know, like at least like Luke is putting some effort into this.
Yeah, and Mark Hamill did too.
Yeah.
Like he trained a ton for these,
and it looks great.
Yeah.
Like it's clearly so well done that we're not even upset about the fact that like there isn't some huge action set piece. Like a million things aren't exploding. It's a very intimate father and son moment.
Just
trying
just
to kill each
father
other.
and son trying to kill each other. Which we haven't talked about the family version of this. I mean, this is obviously the family aspect of this movie is the father and son dynamic. It's not the brother sister dynamic until Return of the Jedi officially. We're in a galaxy far, far away a long time ago, and you can still relate. You know. And then, like that's what makes these movies good and great and watchable and worth talking about for 40 years. Is like at the core of it, there's a relatable dynamic between a father and son. Like, not everybody's father is the galaxy's ultimate badass villain, but like connecting with family and discovering family and finding your place and all of that stuff is like tied into Luke's journey here.
Mm-hmm. Kind of Luke is channeling his adoration for like Chambara, like samurai film. Like granted, a lot of it is very much like what we saw in A New Hope, where it's just two dudes swinging two props at each other and one of them falls down after a little bit. But this one is a little bit of a step up in the way like Hottie Kitty is, you know, something that's a lot more thought out in terms of its blocking of combat and whatnot. And it's just really cool to see Lucas pay homage to the thing that inspired Star Wars to begin with, or helped inspire Star Wars to begin with.
Feels like there's an actual, like, there's a fight choreographer.
Yeah, it's fight choreography combined with like stage play. We see the shift, the game of cat and mouse as they duel one another, and the shift of power and who's at advantage and who's not.
And the red and the blue all through the set to match the colors of their lightsabers, and the smoke that's going on throughout the whole thing, like that covers all manner of sins too. Like, just, you know, it's an incredible set, this carbonite room.
He's in the underworld.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It's great. Very impressive.
But again, just one of those things where I wish I could time warp back to the debut of this movie and sit in the theaters and just gauge the reaction of the crowd when Luke, you know, I'm your father.
Yeah.
Like, we will never understand what that was like.
You know, and this is another one that somehow, like, I'll go ahead and say it. Part of the point of having kids is to be able to like experience things like this for the first time again. But somehow my kids were born knowing that Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father. And I don't know how that works. Like, it is baked into DNA at this point. That's
what happens as soon as they learn how to say their first words. Like, all right, by the way.
Yeah. I'm your father. I don't know what that means. All right, let's talk about movie list. Unless there's something else that we need to.
No.
Okay, great.
Billy D. Williams, he rocks.
Ooh,
Enough said.
We didn't even talk about Lando.
But
again, you know, it's that sequel thing again of like, you blow up the world a little bit, you meet more people, different corners of the galaxy, and like, here's this guy Lando who is
he outrogued Han.
He's unlike anybody else in the first movie. Yeah, in a really interesting way.
Oh man, they mined that stuff for far too mediocre of a Star Wars sequel.
Solo.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't even talk about Solo.
Yeah.
I'm like, anytime they remake something or make a sequel, it's like, you know what, guys, the first movie still exists. Don't be mad about this. But Solo's one that's like, oh, you're like undermining.
It's like, oh, there's like 7 throwaway lines here that like we could turn into a movie.
We could turn into a whole movie.
Yeah.
Are you slimy, double-crossing, no-good swindler?
You got a lot of guts coming here after what you pulled.
Well, let's talk about movie lists. Empire Strikes Back has not shown up on many. It got an honorable mention in sequels. Homemade Movies did the Hoth battle
Got an
sequence
honorable
way back
mention
when.
in sequels?
That's what a tough list.
Yeah, you know, it's rough out there.
It's tough out there for a Star Wars.
Tough out there for a Star Wars. We did get to watch the movie Empire Strikes Back with Sam Witwer and Raul Coley from on Watch From Home Theater, which was a lot of fun.
one.
Yeah.
Also, just two people who are, for both very different reasons, just encyclopedias.
Incredible Star Wars nerds.
Walking Wikipedia.
That was fun.
That was
Honestly,
really
the
cool.
tech check that took like 2 hours too, because we just started talking about. That was fun too. Anyway, Empire itself, it hasn't. You know, Han Solo has shown up on some things, and you know, but Empire itself has not. We've not done a ton about it. I think we did an art of the scene on the original Star Wars, the Trench Run, I think, but not much else.
That's pretty surprising.
Yeah. We did Star Wars Week on IGN at some point years ago, and I broke down the asteroid chase in a couple of ways, but it wasn't on CineFix. So I don't know what I mean. Outside of I need to make another sequels list.
Yeah. Can't believe honorable mention.
You guys talk amongst yourselves
like-
about what list it should end up on, and I'll see where it wound up. Hold, please.
War scenes.
Yeah.
Coolest war scenes.
Battles would be
Battles.
Battles would have been good. It didn't end up on practical effects just because this is a evolution of the original tech that Star Wars ushered in. You know, it took it to like the next level, but I think that there's a big difference between 0 and 1.
Yeah.
And then as
That's
opposed
fair.
to 1 to 2.
That is fair.
You know, best Muppet movies.
Best Muppets. So so where I got the honorable mention was in Godfather Part 2.
So
Ultimately got the pick there.
There's
so.
9 other sequels on that list.
No, actually, there's only 5.
Even then, the fact that this isn't a top 5. So let me guess: is it T2 on there too? T2 get the pick?
No, you know what? We'll put a link to this. This will be what's on the end screen to click on, and you guys can all.
Right.
Anybody wants to bother you can lodge your complaints in the comment section of this one. But.
He's perfect though. You can do top 6 sequels, top 7 sequels, top 8.
I got
you can really milk this
plenty
one.
of room.
Top sequels part 2.
I don't want to do puppet movies. Non-human actors.
Combat scene, best combat footage, combat scenes, war scenes.
I mean,
because like some of the bigger like sci-fi
production design
would be good. We did have a production design list
that it's
at
not
some
even
point.
honorably mentioned on.
Let's find out.
Probably on. It's probably Star. At that point, like Star Wars is honorably mentioned.
Top
so then
5.
it becomes like,
Well,
what's
that's
the
the thing.
best production design Star Wars movie?
Top 5 most time-consuming practical effects ever made.
Top 10 optical printing shots. Yeah, nope. Lord of the Rings got the fantasy pick, so that's probably where it would have been.
Oh, because sci-fi isn't good enough to get its own genre.
No, well, I did put Star Wars in our top 10 westerns. Got a lot of heat for that.
I always get people pissed at me when I tell them Star Wars is a fantasy story.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Urban Kershner called this a fairy tale. Like, that was his whole
we
approach.
should go back to a time when like the Force was just magic and not midichlorian.
Yeah, I would.
I don't think the
keep your
invention,
science out of my Star Wars.
Yeah,
please.
I don't think the midichlorian was a boon to the lore.
All right. Well, I'll go back and like I'll make special editions of the sequels list, and we'll fix it. Shall we torf?
Yeah.
Torf.
Tayo, you want to torf? Good luck on this one, by the way, Tayo.
Good luck, bro.
Something that nobody on the planet knows about Star Wars. Ready, set, go.
Tayo looks like he's in a cockpit right now of one of the a speeder.
No, honestly, you look like you're in one of the rooms where they optically printed most of the asteroid scene.
Yeah. All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, turf number 1. Originally, in the asteroid scene, one of the asteroids was actually a shoe.
I'm gonna go false. I think this
false.
is I think this is a false
purely
on the potato thing.
territory.
Potatoes are way cheaper than shoes.
All right, everyone saying false?
Yes.
It is true.
What the
Wow,
heck?
they snuck a shoe in there.
But basically, it was kind of like a prank. There was like a rumor that George Lucas asked the SFX people to redo the scene so many times they got annoyed, so one of them threw the shoe in there. The later remasters later removed that, but in the original scene, there's actually a shoe.
Oh, nice.
We gotta go
so
back.
we got to go find that despecialized edition and see if we can spot the shoe.
The bounty hunter, dressed all in white, is named Payback. His backstory is that he was once a fierce rival of Han Solo's and was badly beaten by him. He vowed vengeance and has been hunting Solo for some time.
False.
I'm going to go true, just because that's the kind of nonsense that they would write extended
Yeah, I was just going to say, is
universe stuff about.
Is that Legends stuff now? Yeah.
I say false.
I don't know.
I'll go true that was probably extended
Payback?
Why
in
not?
the expanded universe.
That sounds like a Marvel character, not
I mean,
a
they had
Star Wars
Tag and
character.
Bink.
This is the same dude that named somebody Sleaze Bagano, so like.
Also, don't forget that music is called Jizz there. So,
It's just wailing, actually.
well, no, that's the playing of Jizz.
So it is true. And then
What the heck?
Nick, you're kind of right. It got expanded in the Marvel Comics series.
Oh,
That's why
wow.
the game is named Payback. His
you go.
original name is Dengar.
Yeah, Dengar. Yeah, I was like, I know all these dudes' names, and it's not Payback.
Wait, so this is new, like official canon stuff that they renamed them Payback?
It's not new, but like, yeah.
Newer
like,
than
I
Empire
think
Strikes Back?
Yeah. Like they had like a Marvel series where they expanded his backstory.
That's like a Punisher ripoff.
There's bound to be a villain in Marvel canon somewhere called Payback.
So fun fact, his life kind of went downhill after Han Solo beat him up.
You don't say.
Wait, who is that fact fun for? Certainly not Payback.
Well, like Imperial scientists, they had to rebuild him, and then he was turned into an emotionally void assassin with augmented cybernetic enhancements, and then leaving him only with rage, despair, and hope.
Love it.
I mean, you can actually see him also in Rise of Skywalker in his most final form, where he's basically nothing left of the original person is there.
More
and
machine
he's
now
more
than
machine
man.
than man. Yeah, but we don't. This isn't a show
Twisted
about lore.
and evil. I mean, it can be, I suppose. There's enough.
Well, his name's
there's enough-
Rothgar Dengar. And
All right, we got to move on
Next one.
before it becomes Dangar's show.
Mark Hamill had to bang his head 16 times on the ceiling of Yoda's hut before director Irvine Kershner was satisfied.
16 takes of banging his head on Yoda's.
I'm gonna say true, and it better not be one of those. Oh, it was actually 14 times.
Yeah, I'm gonna say
No.
true too.
I'm gonna go false because it wasn't because of Kershner. I think he just accidentally hit his head at 16 times.
It is true.
Oh,
Thank goodness.
Just playing the odds
Got
of
a
how
point
much
on
you're
the board.
screwing with us on the turf at this point.
Before this first Star Wars movie came out, George Lucas had originally mapped out 2 Star Wars sequels. The sequels were The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi.
False.
yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna go true because Lucas claims to have known all along everything. So I don't know. Who knows?
So it is a half true.
What the heck?
Means we all get to be right.
The 2 sequels were The Empire Strikes Back and another film called Splinter of the Mind's Eye.
Oh yeah, that turned into a book.
That was a novel, yeah.
Right.
With a Luke clone named Luke with 2 U's.
Oh, Jesus Christ, that's right. Hey, listen, that was like one of the bad guys in like the Thrawn trilogy too.
Luke.
That's true.
We did it.
All right.
Thank you,
torque.
Tayo.
Yep.
Splinter of the Mind's
Great.
Eye.
I love that as a title for a thing, though. That's so cool.
All right, who's your MVP of the movie?
ILM.
Phil Tippett.
Phil, specifically Tippett? Yeah. I wrote down everybody, but between Tippett, Murin, and Edlund, and Ben Burt, and
I think
like
all
that-
of ILM.
Yeah, all of the craftsmen for sure.
This one goes out to all the nerds.
This one goes out to all you engineer types.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody on screen is great.
Yeah.
Like Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, all great. Darth Vader looks cool, but man, the leap that they made in tech from the first one to the second one, or the fourth one to the fifth one, depending on when we are, was incredible.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Oh, good. Well, then we're done.
Yeah.
Cal, you want to do one more segment?
Yeah. If Nicolas Cage was in this film playing a character of any kind, who would he be?
Of any kind?
Yeah, any kind.
So he can be an alien, is what you're saying?
Dangar?
He can be Dangar?
Yeah. I'd make him Boba. He'd be my
Just
Boba.
put him in the helmet?
Yeah, throw him in the helmet.
Okay. I want him to be Admiral Piet.
That's not bad.
That's not bad.
That's not bad.
I think him being like scared of Vader nonstop, but also like failing upwards while everybody around him gets force choked into promotions. Like, I think Cage would be great doing that. That's kind of what Donald Gleason's role was in the sequel trilogy.
I'd probably have to throw Nick Cage as specifically a dying Rogue 2 pilot. I think he would go crazy in like the final. Every time someone dies in a cockpit in Star Wars, it's always horrific,
Yep.
and I think he'd be able to pull it off.
No, I would like to see Nick Cage's like death throes of a Star Wars pilot. That's true. That's a good call.
Yeah. But you don't want to be and no disintegrations. Fine.
No, I'm right. You can't.
Why hasn't anybody ever gotten disintegrated in Star Wars?
Yeah, the way that he says that line, it's like it's a common
Yeah,
thing.
people get disintegrated there. And
Did they do it a little bit in The Mandalorian? Like, didn't he get that big long gun that like blew people apart?
maybe.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
I think that was like the first episode of Mandalorian or something.
Let's just say this is
Season
the
1.
first thing I've watched from Star Wars in a long time.
Yeah,
That would have
bit.
been like, hey, this is pretty cool.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Talking like a true Star Wars fan there.
Uh huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm giving that one to me. Admiral Piet would be the best spot for him.
Everyone knows
it
I'm
would be
right.
too. You can't put him in a helmet, and then also you did. As much as it would be great to see that death scene, it's too short. Too short. Do you guys have this ranked? Is this on your list anywhere?
Honestly, no. I
Really?
chose only one Star Wars, and it was
okay.
Star Wars.
All right. I had it at, and to be honest, not sure why. I had it at 24.
That's pretty high up.
That's high up.
I was being.
That's high up for a sequel that didn't make your sequels list.
Right? Well, that was only 5. So
This is
what
not
if
on
it's
my
5?
list.
It's not on your list.
Not on my list.
Dan had it at 35.
Did you have the original Star Wars on your list?
Let's double check. Nope.
Wow.
No Star
No
Wars.
Star Wars.
You have a single Star Wars. Oh,
No.
you think you're so cool.
How many Marvel movies do you have on your list?
I mean,
Let's
all
not do
of
this
them.
now.
No, well, 'cause if you're not gonna have a Star Wars on there,
I don't have a Marvel in there
good,
at all.
good.
All right.
I have no cape shit.
All right. Well, I had it at 24. Dan had it at 35, and Alex had it at 15.
Okay.
Tayo, did you have it on your list?
No Star Wars.
No, Tayo's got no Star Wars either. Let's see what that does. So 24, 35, and a 15, and 3 no thank yous.
I think it's got to be in the high 20s, like low 20s.
Low
Let's go-
20s?
Let's go like 22.
22.
I'm gonna say
Over under.
25.
25?
I'll go 25.
I'm taking the under on both of you. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
$1, Bob.
Oh, so close.
21. My goodness. Empire Strikes Back, the 21st. Only 20 movies better than Empire Strikes Back. What do you think about that?
You know, I think after this viewing, I can see a world where that is possible.
You'll allow it
I'll
after
allow
after
it.
watching it?
There's
this time?
only 20 movies better than Empire Strikes Back.
Man,
When I
guess.
put it like that, it's like, oh, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if there's 20 movies better than anything, you know?
All right, Nick, we need you to have some
They're
kind
all-
of stance here if you're going to be on this
Yeah, you
podcast.
can't- you
Okay, this
Don't-
movie's at least 40 positions worse than Star Wars. And
All right, so
Okay.
but what you are trying to say, this isn't on your list, correct?
It is not on my list.
So this movie is in fact worse than Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, that's exactly what
Oh,
I'm saying.
man. All right. Well, so, the family season. Here comes the dynamic.
Yeah.
Star Wars is on the list still. We've already done that episode. Which one are we getting rid of? We can only have one.
Do we know where A New Hope is? What position that's in?
Yeah, based on the tenor of this conversation, I feel like we're just like on the opposite waveforms. Where I was like The Last Crusade over Raiders, I'm gonna be Star Wars over Empire, and it sounds like we're just ships in the night.
Listen, I had Star Wars on my list too. I had it lower than Empire, but to be honest, I'm not entirely sure why. Yeah. Star Wars is still on the list. It's number 34 on our list, from what I'm told.
I'm just gonna throw it out there. I'm team A New Hope.
You're kicking Empire off?
I'm kicking Empire off.
I'm kicking New Hope off.
Oh, and it comes down to me?
Yeah.
You know what? Let's get. I'm in the interest of being consistent. For me, this was some of my thinking with Raiders as well. Like, I don't think you make a good sequel unless the foundation is rock solid, and so I typically will give the first one more credit than.
Except in this instance,
I think there are some exceptions, but let's go ahead and get rid of Empire.
All right.
We'll leave Star Wars on there.
Great.
I understand.
I completely agree with that statement.
I'm not mad about it one way or the other.
Okay, well, you didn't have either of them on your list.
I think it makes sense. It's an important movie.
Yes, Star Wars changed some stuff, and I think Empire has a real lasting legacy, but like it didn't change things the way Star Wars did.
Yeah.
But come on, Empire's way more rewatchable.
I do think Empire is a better.
Made less money.
And that's really the true sign of a movie.
But I mean, listen.
That's why because Avatar is number one on all of our lists.
I mean,
right?
Empire's probably more quotable, but like when I want to sit down and watch a Star Wars movie, I'm probably sitting down and watch A New Hope. I'm a sucker that way.
I'm trying to think of the last time I wanted to just watch a Star Wars movie. Which one it was? Might have been Return of the Jedi.
During COVID, I watched Star Wars like basically ad nauseum because it was just there on Disney Plus and it was a shiny new service. And I did watch A New Hope pretty regularly.
And you did enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
It's a great movie.
So I was born in 1982, and by the time I knew what was happening, I had that original trilogy on VHS, and it was just all around. Same deal with Indiana Jones. I think I've got an enormous soft spot for Return of the Jedi. But that wasn't on my list. So
I think that's a common like transition, right? Like kids, like when they're real young, like Return of the Jedi might be their favorite movie, and then older they get, the more they realize it's like I'm more mature now. I like Empire.
Yeah,
I totally get and empathize with that. I've always loved Star Wars 1, and probably when I was a teen, I transitioned into the more, I love Empire. Empire's the best one.
Yeah.
But the older I've gotten, I've kind of gone back to the original Star Wars, and it's just like
it's the fairy tale that started it all.
Yeah, it's just nothing.
Yeah. All right, well, farewell, Empire Strikes Back. We hardly knew you. Hope you enjoyed your spot on the list while it was around. Whatever is 101 is now 100. Maybe we'll run into that movie one of these days.
Is that Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead?
If it's Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, I swear to God. All right, but that will do it for us today. Thank you for watching The Empire Strikes Back with us again. If anybody watched Empire Strikes Back for the first time, specifically to watch this episode of the Top 100, what was that like?
Let us know.
Who are you? Let's hang out because that's weird. But otherwise, thanks shall be equally distributed to Torf Admiral, producer Tayo Oyekan, Weird Reptilian Bounty Hunters, technical producers Amir, Rakib, and Marhyan Franzen, production manager and Gundar enthusiast Tanner Smith. Thank you to him as well. But Dan, who smells just as bad on the outside, no thanks will be given to him once again this week. But tune in next week when we will be jumping from the Galactic Empire exerting its authority on the rebellion to the Feds exerting their authority on the mob. We're watching Goodfellas next time. We're all just glancing at Calvin.
You can't tell he's very excited.
Okay. But in the meantime, stay safe, be good. May the Force be with you. Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining the CineFix Top 100 for Empire Strikes Back. We're going to be back next week with more family time and Goodfellas. But before you take off and start patiently waiting for that, I need to let you know more about IGN Live coming to LA for the second year in a row on June 7th and 8th. It was a lot of fun last year. I'll be out there again this year, but what you need to know right now is throughout April, we are running early bird pricing. That's a pretty good discount off the regular price. That makes it $15 instead of $30 for single day tickets, and VIP tickets are $30 instead of $40 in this early bird pricing special. So get your tickets now, save a few bucks, and in the meantime, I'll see you back here on CineFix next week for Goodfellas.